the Spirit say go, and when the Spirit say go, I'm gonna go, oh Lord. I'm gonna jail when the Spirit say go. I'm gonna move when the Spirit say move. I'm gonna move when the Spirit say move. I'm gonna move when the Spirit say move.
Hey, before you guys go, I need to get some. Oh, Nyla, look at her. She dipped. That was quick. She just pop. I'm gone. I'm a ghost. I wanted to invite anybody that wants to participate in my civil rights class at Oak Hall. I've now expanded it to 3 classes. It started in 1 class, did it for 3 years. Now in the 4th year, have the introduction to civil rights, a lot of it based on what we did at the Proctor Center. Then civil rights 1900 to 1971, and then 1971 to present. So I'm always looking for speakers, people to come in, with a video, talk about stuff. So I'll put I'm sure you guys have my contact information, but I'll just put it in the chat. Let me know what's up if you ever have an idea. I mean, last night I met with Sandra Parks, and we're working on some stuff. So just let you guys know that the beat goes on. The work continues. Like I know all of you are doing great things.
The St. Augustine connection.
Oh my gosh, yeah, St. Augustine was awesome. Has anybody talked to Queen Quet recently, or any of the Oklahoma Seminoles?
No,
I don't think so.
I was on leave, so I didn't really get to meet them.
Well, that's our peeps. We can't leave them. And what about the folks down in Melbourne at Macedonia?
We actually did try to reach out, but Miss Anjanette, she relocated. Right. Yes, but we need to actually get in touch with the pastor at the church.
She actually asked me to be in her dissertation committee. She's going to school where, Northwestern or Chicago, and so yeah, but she transitioned from being the pastor that we work with when I saw Jennifer Thaluzma on the call. I didn't get a chance to say hey, but Jennifer and Raina Shipman, remember tomorrow when we went down there in Marna to do that oral history workshop? And Jennifer and Raina gave that great presentation. And so yeah, and it's been amazing because we've opened up these new collaborations. We've been in Broward County. We went to Miami-Dade with the South Florida People of Color. We've done, Naila and I did a panel together actually in Fort Lauderdale last year, and talked with some of the Dream Defenders in South Florida. And they were just there today giving testimony. I don't know if you noticed, but Naila mentioned in the chat that some of the members of Dream Defenders gave testimony against the pending anti-protest bill, right? Because they believe that, hey, we should be making laws against protesting, And so, but yeah, we just continue to widen our sphere of collaboration. But as Deborah and Tamara can tell you, the pandemic has had an impact. So we're still doing a lot of interviews, but obviously, field work has been temporarily halted. Justin, how's your experience? Like, how's the pandemic impacted your research?
Yeah, I'm really working off of stuff I've already done in terms of interviews. I haven't done any field work since I think 2019. I think I was at UC Santa Barbara for most of last year, and then the pandemic hit us in March, and California locked down immediately. So we were quarantined from March until June. So yes, I think most anthropologists now are really trying to figure out either digital ethnography, social media, because you can't really go in and interview people now. It's unsafe. You put them at risk interviewing them.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's so funny you said field work. I accidentally just bumped into, after I knew that I was invited to participate in this incredible event tonight, I picked up just by mistake this disc that I had laying down, field notes from 2010 from a trip I took to the Delta. And so I started out, in High Springs talking about the trip, and like every couple of hours I was saying something. I went by Parchment Prison. I went to Sumner. I got together with Margaret, and it was weird hearing myself talk about those things that happened on those trips. A decade later, I had no idea that even existed. But that comes from the Deborah file, because somehow she must have saved it. Is the only reason I had a copy of it. So once again, back to Deborah.
Deborah is our institutional memory. I mean,
Right.
she reminds me of so many things we did. I'm like, we really did that?
Yeah.
I didn't get the chance to share my favorite Margaret Block memory tonight, which was, and Marnie, you've heard this before, but this was in between trips. And I was in the Delta and checked in on Margaret, and she had one of her many goddaughters was with her. You know, Margaret was a godparent for like scores and scores of people, like Chris
Really?
Austin, who's the chair of Black Studies at Oregon, Akinyele Moja, the chair of Black Studies at Georgia State, right? But this one trip, I remember picking up Margaret and was with one of her goddaughters, and we drove past Parchman. Oh, I know what it was. It was the 60th anniversary of the Freedom Rides. And we were there with this very small team to kind of document it. And we drove past Parchman, and I've always been scared of that place, you know, as soon as I heard about it, you know, and we drove past there, and Margaret said, stop the car. We stopped in the parking lot in front of Parchman. And I said, well, let's get a photograph of the marquee. And Margaret said, you know, one of my grandnephews knows the superintendent of prisons. So I'm gonna take us into Parchman, and we're gonna do a tour. And I said, Margaret, that's okay. You know, she was insistent. So she goes up to the guard in the kiosk, and I was like, no, Margaret, don't do that. They're all armed with machine guns and all this stuff, you know. And she goes and just talks to them for about 3 minutes. We were driving through the gates. I'd never been involved in such a thing in my entire life, and just drove right into Parchman Prison with Margaret Block. I mean, it was incredible, you know. And the assistant deputy warden, you know, took us around and showed us where the Freedom Riders had been incarcerated. And you know, he mentioned a couple times that, you know, it was unusual for people to get a tour like this, but because it was Margaret, he had to relent, because he got a call from his brother, the Mississippi Bureau of Prisons. So that Margaret could open doors, including the door to Parchman Prison.
That's beautiful. So Paul, I know we're doing a different celebration tonight, but just the news about Judge Mickle yesterday was, you know, really, I'm so glad that we're able to do what we did for him. But I mean, what do you even say? I'm even getting kind of choked up now talking about it. Have we reached out in any way to Mrs. Mickle as well to let the family know we're thinking about them? Or?
We are going to. We had just saw, you know, Mrs. Mickle. We were in a program together, a virtual program, you know, no more than a month ago. It was in December. And so we are, you know, but we've lost so many friends, of course. I was on the phone the other day with, you know, Mrs. Jean Chalmers. You know, David Chalmers passed away. David Colburn passed away, of course, you know. And so, yeah, but we'll definitely, you know, put something together, and I'll call Evelyn. Yeah.
I really feel strongly that, you know, if we weren't doing what we're doing right now, we'd be going over with cornbread and, you know, red beans or something, just to be around them. I just want to make sure that they know that we're thinking about them.
Yes. Yeah. Definitely. Well, I don't want to keep you all, because I know you all have like real lives outside of memory lane. So
I'm still at school.
You're actually, I think, are you in school right now, man?
Yeah, can you believe it? I'm at Oak Hall right now.
All right.
Yeah.
And Omar is working on his senior thesis even as we're talking, right?
Hey, congratulations. That's awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm still working on that.
We're getting ready for a public program. Omar is actually going to speak at it. We've started a collaboration with the Latino Public Policy Institute at UCLA. And we're talking about the interviews we've done in Immokalee, and also with Latinx healthcare workers and, you know, people defined as essential workers. Sonia Diaz, who's one of my former students who founded the center in UCLA, is just a powerhouse. And we're also going to be working with another dear friend, Maggie Rodriguez, who's a senior professor at UT Austin J School. And the idea is to put together kind of a consortium on Latino oral history in the Southeast, especially during the era of the pandemic. And we're using the Mississippi Freedom Project as a model, you know, to kind of maybe put together some kind of field work experience for people in Florida, you know, once we can do that again. You know, and Justin will be calling on your expertise to kind of get that up and running.
Absolutely, I'm here.
Okay. Deborah, how do you think it went?
You guys still have attendees.
Oh, we do. Well,
This is
that's
the live
okay.
workshop.
We'll give them a good.
Let's
Yeah,
see,
we'll
this is
give 'em a good-
unplugged. This is the second
Hey,
CDs.
Jennifer, I
Yeah.
see Jennifer Thaluzma. I want to give a shout to Jennifer.
Jennifer.
How are you doing, Jennifer? It's great to see you. Emma Donnelly, Mr. Nelson, Kasamba, Michael Gendler, Nancy Hunt. Hey, Nancy, my colleague from history, Nancy Hunt. Oliver Thaluzma. Oliver, I got to apologize to you because we did get your video remembrance, but somehow it was one of the ones that didn't get put in, but we will be putting it in. We can use
We
it.
can put it in now.
You can put it in now, yeah. So Oliver, I hope, Oliver, are you in the third, are you a 3L now in law school? Are you, I don't know if you may be wait.
Mr. Nelson said he's at the dinner table still. And we still have Sam Dixie on the
Hey,
Oh,
Sam.
really?
Wow, Sam, how are you?
Hey, Sam Dixie, and we just talked last weekend, and I hope you heard when we gave kind of a memorialization of your parents. And when I first met Sam's parents, I just had to say this. I was in Tallahassee as a grad student, and we were working out of the offices of Florida A&M. And Professor James Eaton was our supervisor. Sam knows Mr. Eaton very well. Marna knows what I'm talking about. Professor Eaton was the founder of the Black Archives at Florida A&M, a legendary scholar. And the three-person grad team, one day we realized we'd run out of interviews to do. And we asked Mr. Eaton, and he said, young scholars, your education begins today. You're going to actually have to create your own interviews. So we're like, I actually went to a phone book. Remember what a phone book was, Marna?
Oh, I still have phone books.
Yeah. and I started like,
I'm OG.
I should, you know, one of my former professors, Peter Wu, was on the line. I can say this now because Peter's off, but I wouldn't say it if he was still on the line. I started cold calling people. I remember I called the office of the American Federation of State, County, Municipal Employees, you know, the AFSCME trade union. And I said, do you have any African-American elders or retirees that would be willing to, you know, tell their stories about, you know, growing up under segregation? They said, oh, young man, you got to talk to Mrs. Laura Dixie. She was the founder of our union in Florida, and she'll tell you anything you want to know. And so I called her on the phone, and she invited me right in, she said, come over right now. And so I drove over. Her and Mr. Dixie, her husband, lived in, you know, in the Jake Gaither neighborhood. And I mean, they were just incredible storytellers. They just literally, as Sam Jr. can tell you, they just adopted me. I mean, they took me in. They insisted, by the way, that I stayed with them after that first year, because I think the second year I was doing interviews and I started asking people in the area about the Ku Klux Klan. And I remember Sam Dixie Sr. called me one evening. He said, young man, you've been asking questions that are really making a lot of white folk angry. And so Mrs. Dixie and I would like you to come stay with us. And for your duration of your field work here. I said, oh no, Mr. Dixie, that's okay. I can take care of myself. You know, here I'm an Army veteran and everything. He said, young man, you don't understand this. Where are you staying right now? And I told him the Econo Lodge. He said, I'm coming to pick you up. So there was no option. It was like, we're going to pick you up and you're going to stay with us. And at that time, I didn't realize that they had actually really done the same thing with Dr. King. I mean, because the Dixie family had a reputation for defending themselves. And SCLC, which Mrs. Dixie was a lifetime member, that's where Dr. King went and stayed, was in the Dixie household. And so I remember the other story about the Dixie family, which I think Sam Jr. was there when this happened, was one of Sam's uncles, A.I. Dixie, who was a bit older than Sam Sr. A.I. was about 6 years older than Sam Sr., I think. And to see those two brothers, when I interviewed them together, you know, and one was, you know, maybe like 85 and the other was 79. And I would ask him a question, can you tell me where Quincy is? And A.I. Dixie would say, 20 miles west of Tallahassee. And Sam Jr. would, or Sam Sr. would say, yep, 20 miles west of Tallahassee. And they would kind of echo each other. And I remember they would call me when I was working on my first book, Emancipation Betrayed. And I was so frustrated and so frustrated. And Mr. and Mrs. Dixie would actually call me and say, how's that book coming along, Paul? You know, we want to host your first book talk. And so when the book finally did come out, and they were so supportive, the first book reading I gave was actually in their home. And A.I. Dixie was there, and he was 90 at the time, I think, and he started it off by telling us stories about mules and why it was important to understand the role of mules in farming rural communities. And I thought of Zora Neale Hurston's classic book, right? Mules and Men, the story about how people depended upon mules and why learning the personality of a mule was like so key to being able to survive. And that was at the first reading I did of that book of Emancipation Betrayed. Was in Sam's, Sam and Laura Dixie's house. And of course, Sam Jr. now, Sam, I forgot to mention the fish fries and the barbecues that you've done for us. I apologize for that. We'll make sure and talk about that later. But anyway, y'all, I should get going. Got papers to grade, got a 3-hour grad seminar tomorrow. So thank you everyone so much for being with us.
So great seeing you all. Good luck with everything.
Hey,
Much love, everybody. Good to see you.
fun.
Talk again soon.
And good night, all of our attendees. Good night, Stan. Great. Thank you for your poetry, your wonderful words.
Words spell the victory. Let my people go. Go tell it on the mountain, over the hills and everywhere. Go tell it on the mountain to let my people go.